Hello, 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 and welcome to this first edition of the EQ Lunch and Learn series. I am so excited. It is a really gray and miserable day as I look outside my window, so I intentionally wore something bright and colorful. I am in orange just so that I can reflect the feeling that I am feeling inside. Thank you so much to all of you who have joined us for this first edition of the Lunch and Learn series. We are living in such turbulent times. There is so much complexity. Even before COVID-19 arrived, stress has been on the rise. We have incredible technology to be able to communicate with each other, and yet people feel more and more isolated. This combination makes us more volatile, more impatient, and more likely to default to fight or flight. The emotional challenge has been steadily rising all over the world, and the pandemic has just highlighted it. It's shone a spotlight on what already existed. Maybe once upon a time, there was little need to actively learn the skills of emotional intelligence. But in this world of growing complexity, emotional intelligence has become an essential skill for employees. Against this backdrop of a rising need for emotional intelligence, organizations are struggling to meet the demand. Leaders are constantly juggling multiple balls, trying to stay abreast of the lightning pace at which change occurs, managing the heightened volatility and the increased uncertainty. And so employees are under increased amounts of pressure, and they are stressed by the current situation and how they can manage their workloads and how they can find balance when they are working from home, where the line between home and work and school for those who have kids have become blurred. Across Africa, employees find themselves working in an environment that has just become like a pressure cooker. So there is a clear skills gap. And we believe that ultimately today's employees are armed with yesterday's tools. They are frequently ill-equipped to deal with the challenges that we face today as we battle the coronavirus pandemic and tomorrow, whatever the future holds. The EQ Lunch and Learn series aims to provide employees with insights on how they can utilize emotional intelligence as a skill to successfully navigate the challenges and changes that they face. My name is Mucha Mlingo. I am your host today, and I'm extremely excited to have you participate in this first edition of the Lunch and Learn series. The series will be a monthly event, and it will be for employees that want to get practical insights about emotional intelligence and learn how EQ can be more important than IQ for their career success. Gain an understanding of how they can utilize emotions as a strategic resource to navigate through the challenges faced in the workplace, and receive tools to build the emotional muscle necessary to thrive in these uncertain and unpredictable times. And I assume that because you're here, those are three things that you are interested in. Today, our topic is resilience. Resilience is defined as the capacity to recover from difficulties, and it is a skill that is essential as we navigate this season of heightened uncertainty. As organizations make sweeping changes in response to the pandemic, how can employees find that inner toughness and grit that is required to forge forward or pivot? I'm really excited to have with me three awesome panelists who are going to share in the discussion as we explore what resilience is in the workplace, why it's important, and can individuals actually become more resilient. And so, as I mentioned, I am really happy. I have 3 awesome panelists who are going to join and help me in this conversation as we go. So first up, I'd like to invite to join me Tessie Omulo. Tessie is a communication specialist. Tessie is a communications specialist, currently working at Centonomy Limited as their PR and communications manager. She's also the director of the Female Founders Kenya community. She is passionate about youth participation in driving change and is the one human being who cares too much about coffee. To learn more about Tessie and to connect with her further, you can visit her LinkedIn page. Tessie, can you say hi to everyone, please?
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Mucha, for inviting me. I'm so excited to be here. And just like you said, you're wearing yellow. I did the flower thing, to make sure I'm all, not gloomy as we go through this session today. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. I'd like to also add to the stream Susan Chege. Susan has over 15 years of experience in the field of HR and countless years before that of being intrigued by people. Susan likes to be identified as a people person. She loves interacting with people from all walks of life, hearing their story and helping them identify what makes them tick and how to capitalize on it. Her style is tough love, both at work and out of work. Susan is the current head of people and culture at Jambojet. Susan, hey, welcome to our session today.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Mucha, for having me. I'm excited to have this discussion. This is just at the core of everything that's happening in the world today. And I'm looking forward to learning even from Tessie and the other panelists.
Yes, we are going to make sure that it is a space where we are all learning. I'm looking forward to learning from everyone too. So if you'd like to learn more about Susan or connect with her, feel free to connect with her on LinkedIn. I have shared a link to her LinkedIn page as well. Last but not least, we do have a gentleman in the house. I'd like to welcome Michael Oyier to join us as we have our discussion. Michael, you are very welcome. Thank you so much for being with us today. Michael is an executive coach at the Serenity Group Limited. Serenity Group has a vision to help clients to unlock the past, envision the future, and live wholly today. Michael is an executive leadership coach who also practices as a counseling psychologist and a media practitioner. Michael, say hi to us.
Hello to everyone. I would say good afternoon from Nairobi. And thank you, Mucha, for having me on the first episode of Lunch and Learn. I'd like to say that I love living to be a trusted advisor, dealing with confidentiality, and a witness to transformation. So if I contribute to that this afternoon, I'll be living my purpose. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us, Michael. So if you'd like to connect with Michael, you feel free to join him or connect with him on his LinkedIn page. Alrighty, so let's jump right in. Resilience. We're talking about resilience today, and it is a word that has been bandied about so much. It has been used now more than ever in our lifetime, I believe. What does resilience mean to you? Susan, if I can start with you, what is resilience and what does it mean to you?
Thanks, Mucha. Resilience used to be something we'd look for, and everybody's like, it's nice if you're resilient. And nowadays we've learned that it is a must-have, particularly with everything that's been happening of late with the pandemic. So resilience, and I like the way when we have a discussion, you refer to it, it's not the ability to bounce back, but rather the ability to bounce forward. So in my view, resilience is when you're able to go through a storm and encounter challenges, and you're able to accept that you might fall, accept that you might have stumbled, but you're able to gather yourself and pick yourself up and go through the storm and come out on the other side ready to continue pursuing whatever it is that you were pursuing. That's my view of resilience.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Susan. Tessie, what does resilience mean to you?
I'd want to share an example that is not really a workplace example, but I believe it's sort of impacted all facets of my life of late. Last year, I decided to start running every day, improve my health. I think that was November, and I decided I'm going to run every day to improve my health. And I took some days off. Normally, sometimes you set a goal, but there are days you feel like I don't want to wake up. So that days I took off. And sometime this year in March, actually it was March 21st this year, I decided, you know what, I want to take this on again. And I set a target this time. I said, I want to run every day for 182 days consistently to improve my health. And I had 2 rules. 1, no excuses whatsoever. And 2, if I skip a day, I take it from the top. Now I can happily say that this is day 150 of my 182 challenge, running consistently every single day. So what does resilience mean for me? I think it's the courage to try again and the ability to learn from my journey. Because now I can tell a lot about my 150 days, because I still had moments when I felt like, no, I don't want to wake up. But it's that ability to learn from this journey and being able to try again. Yeah.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you, Tessie. Can you just tell us before I move to you, Michael, what was the furthest point you got to and had to reset? Or did you ever have to reset in the 150 days?
No, I didn't reset. So the first set was 30. The first set was 30, and I skipped a couple of days. So when I took 182 from day 1, I have not reset. I am not resetting. I have about 30 more days to go. So I'm on right now. No looking back.
Fantastic. Wow, that's awesome. Michael, talk to us. What is resilience? What does that mean to you?
I'd like to use a metaphor. I think resilience is being able to go through the clouds, whether you're going through the clouds, keeping sight and a vision of the sun that is above that storm and those clouds, and being real to the fact that there are times you have to go down deep through those clouds and into the storm so that you can continue with that journey. So whichever place you're in, whether you're down or up, you have a clear vision of where it is that you want to go. Why do we land on the ground? Sometimes, we run out of fuel. We make the wrong decision. We have to crash land, but we are still going to pick up again and take off again after doing all the repairs. And repairs can be difficult, especially when I talk about leaders on a personal level, professional level, big losses, but you need to make the repairs and take off again because you have a good sight of where you're going above the clouds. We're not staying below.
I like that. I like that. I like the idea of staying above the clouds and kind of reminding yourself where it is you're going. Thank you so much for those awesome insights that you have shared. Tessie, let me come back to you. There is so much that has been said about millennials and Gen Z. It's been said that you are ill prepared to deal with life challenges. Apparently, you were all really spoiled by your parents. And so as a result, you have higher rates of mental health issues like depression and anxiety. Speaking specifically with regards to resilience, what is your take? Are millennials resilient? What do you think?
One is, I think, other than now being named the smartphone generation, I just recently learned that we are labeled also as the most anxious generation, which is a tough label, to be honest. And it's not entirely uncalled for, because we can tell with the reports of the high, rate of depression rates or suicide rates, around the world from Generation Z. But even with the adverse effects of the pandemic right now, because that has caused everyone to go into some sort of panic and anxiety, I'd like to say that there's opportunity. Yeah, there's an exciting opportunities. I feel like it's an exciting time to be young. Why? Because even as we are being referred to as these people who ghost their employers sometimes, have terrible communication,
Yeah.
skills, we have the ability to adapt and learn so fast. Yeah, if you actually take control of that particular aspect of your life, we can learn and adapt really fast. So I think with the effects that we are going through right now, we might really lose out on the opportunity that we have. So to answer your question, Mucha, I think we are resilient if we are intentional. And I think we can be resilient if we're intentional about that particular purpose. Yeah.
All right. What advice would you give to a millennial who wants to build this resilience muscle? So perhaps there's a millennial who's watching right now or listening to this later. What advice would you give them if they feel they'd like to build this muscle of resilience?
One, I'd want to really first salute companies that are taking interest in empowering their employees or their staff to be able to react or sort of go through this season better. And I'm totally grateful for my company, Centonomy, which took us through a whole EQ series to help us get more empowered to, become better people. And, in turn, add more value to the company. So it's not just adding value to the individual, but it comes back to growth of the company. So for people who are in positions where the company does not quite offer such opportunities, you need to sort of invest in yourself. And how do you do that? One, there's opportunity now for a lot of free courses where you can build or grow your skill set in different areas, right? Time is not stopping. That's the absolute truth. And even as we come out of this, or as we move on to a different part, a different season, you need to be equipped. So now you need to take the opportunity to learn new skills, equip yourself to be ready. When that time comes, when people are fishing for who are these resilient young people, who are these good communicators, who are these leaders who we need to hire, when Susan is looking out for these people, you need to be ready. Another way you can learn from people who've come before you. And I don't like calling it mentorship because that word scares young people. Do you have a mentor? How do you get a mentor? How do you approach a mentor? I mean, they're questions that usually just terrify young people because they don't know how to go about it. I like to call it, look for someone who has been there, been through the journey, and learn from them. And how I like to do it is, if I realize Susan is someone I'd want to really learn from, and I think has amazing insights that would help me grow in my career, I'd reach out to Susan and tell her, Susan, because I'm going to be taking your time, allow me to take you for breakfast or lunch, and I'll make sure I'm prepared for that session because I'm taking their time, and learn from them. So learn from someone who has gone through the journey before you and can teach you, or can, help you move faster or become better at what you do without making the same mistakes they made when they were young. The first one I said was invest in yourself. Number two, be part of the solution and not the problem. I think I was part of an organization called ISEC for about 4 to 5 years. And that was a saying that was very common in our team meetings. As you give an excuse, everyone is asking, are you being part of the solution? Are you being part of the problem? So even when companies now are changing a lot, we are said to be tech savvy, right? how can we leverage on these amazing skills that we have to make sure the company gets on board and is able to sort of adapt really fast and keep growing. Number 3, I think cultivate on meaningful relationships in the workplace. So I'm not saying go and make best friends at work. No, make sure you are able to relate with people at work in a way that will allow you to grow, to add value. People who can give you good feedback about how you do your work and how you can improve. 4, be proactive and speak up. This allows you to stay relevant. So young people usually feel, if I mention this point, I think it's not the best. Why haven't they tried it till now? It must have been something they've thought about, and so I don't want to mention it. Or you probably failed before at something you suggested, and so you doubt yourself. What I'd say is speak up. If you have an idea, it's better if you fail twice than not try at all. So make sure you're one person who is adding value in terms of giving ideas, new ideas to the company and contributing to the company's growth and your growth as well. And number 5, respect the process. I'm telling you, young people like fast stuff. I want to get into this company. I'm an intern 2 months. I'm a manager 2 months. I am a head 2 months. I'm the CEO. Girl, it's not possible. It is possible, but you need to respect the process, right? Take it easy, because even as you're going through your journey, you're learning. So as you learn, you need to understand that you're becoming a better person and you're becoming more equipped. And so when the time comes, through this process, you're going to earn whatever position or whatever role you'd want to take up. So those 5 things.
Wow, 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 wow. I feel like I have learned, I have been schooled, and I'm definitely not a millennial, but I think that those really apply even to us. Michael, let me come to you. As an executive coach, you support individuals in their leadership journey. Could you share some tips for leaders who are looking to build resilience? And maybe before you share the tips, what does resilience look like from a leader, right? How does it show up? How do we see resilience in our leaders? And then what tips would you share for someone in leadership to build resilience?
So for a leader, when you look at resilience, we're looking now at the leader is the bearer of the vision. So the resilience comes into play with keeping sight on the vision, no matter the troubles and challenges that we're going through. And there's one aspect in terms of keeping us focused on the vision, but I think leaders also have to have the wherewithal and the presence to know when maybe it's time to shift the vision from what had been first seen and what we were first pursuing. So I see resilience in those 2 directions for a leader, that you know where we're going and you know when we might need to change the direction that we're taking. With regard to the tips, the critical thing I think for a leader is to always be asking themselves the questions that matter. That's what I would start with. And what are some of these questions? You're always seeking to know, what can we do differently? How can we grow better? Is it time to change? If we're going to change, how do we change? And just continually asking oneself questions. Now, if we stay in the level where we then believe that we have all the answers ourselves, then now we're failing as leaders, even in that environment. Because
Michael, we've lost you for a second there. Unfortunately, Michael is on the road as he tunes in, and so he must have hit a patch where his connection's a bit tricky. Michael, we can hear you now. Ooh, Michael, we've lost you again. All right, so let's hold that thought. It looks like Michael is going through a spot where Michael, we're losing you. Michael, can you hear me?
That come with that require resilience.
Okay, it looks like Michael can't hear me as I am sharing.
What Tessie was saying.
Michael? All right, so let's pause on Michael's response and we'll get him to come back and share with us. So Michael was talking about resilience from a leader's perspective, right? And how leaders can develop their leadership skills, right? Susan, let me come to you as the head of people and culture. I want to look at things from your perspective, right? I want to look at things from your perspective. How does resilience show up in the workplace? Can you, as a manager, as a leader, tell if an individual is lacking in this skill? Susan, just unmute yourself.
Thanks, Mucha. So as I said when we kicked off, resilience used to be a buzzword and it used to be a good to have, but we've learned that it's a must have. It's our world has become so dynamic and challenges come at you from directions that you don't anticipate, never planned for, never prepared for. And that's where resilience comes in so critically, because you have a plan and you are working towards that goal. So I would like to just share how we identify resilience in the workplace. How are you able to see somebody who's resilient? And I've taken it from 3 different angles. And the first one being their perspective. A resilient employee is one who tends to be positive. It's how they see things. So, for example, like I said, challenges come at us at from different directions and in manners that we didn't anticipate. And these challenges might make us stumble and fall. So somebody who's resilient will not see their difficulties as difficulties, but rather as challenges and an opportunity to grow and an opportunity to stretch themselves. A resilient employee will encounter failures and mistakes. And rather than seeing these failures and mistakes as a display of poor worth or being a failure, they'll identify this as opportunities to reflect and learn something from whatever they've experienced. So when a person of resilience encounters challenges, they'll see it as an opportunity to grow. When a resilient employee has a goof moment, or they fall flat on their face, or their project doesn't kick off, they will take the time to look, reflect, and identify what lessons they've learned from it. And sometimes the lesson is magnanimous, and sometimes the lesson is simply that that's not the way to do it. And somebody who's resilient in the workplace is able to come out with that positive conclusion to a situation that didn't necessarily go positively. The second thing that I've learned to identify as resilience in employees is commitment. A resilient employee will be committed. And it's not just committed to their work. They're committed to goals. Like Tessie shared, she was committed to become a runner. And that's what got her going every single day. So a resilient employee will have set goals that they internalize. And those are goals in the workplace, in their lives. It's their ikigai. It's the reason that they get out of bed every morning. They know that they're getting up to do something. Whether rain or shine, I'm sure Tessie has had to do her walk in terrible weather or her jog, her running, because it was the reason she got up. She got up so that she could do it, and that's why she's pursuing it. So employees who are resilient have very clear goals that they have committed to. Something else that I've identified as a characteristic of resilient employees is a focus on personal control. People of resilience will focus on that which they can influence. You look at a situation, it's a pandemic, for example. Coronavirus is here, it's not going anywhere. I'm not a medic. I'm not able to do anything about that. But in my space, what can I do about it? How can I take care of myself? How can I better equip those around me to cope with the situation? So focusing on that which you have control over not only helps you to make steps and strides, but also keeps you positive. If you focus on that which you can't control, you start to feel helpless, hopeless, and you can even get overwhelmed. And that feeling of being overwhelmed stops you in your tracks, and you're not able to go through whatever this challenge is. So the last one, which both Tessie and Michael have touched on, which means for me that it's clearly very relevant for millennials, leaders, everyone across board, is agility and versatility. If you're able to stop and realize this course of action is not getting me to where we need to be going, I need to try and do it a different way. That agility keeps you going, and you're able to persevere through whatever your challenges are. So if you're, as a leader, if you're able to change course, that's your agility. As a millennial, if you're able to be versatile, if you're able to change the way that you do things because that's what the environment is requiring at that point in time, then you're resilient. And when that storm is still continuing, you are still persevering through to get to the goals that you have set for yourself and that which you're trying to achieve. So in the workplace, that's how we identify resilience. The other part of what you had asked is, are we able to identify if somebody has or doesn't have those skills? Yes, and that's how you identify it. If you have an employee who, on the first sign of a challenge, they're ready to quit and say it was too hard, this project is not possible, there are no funds, they'll always find a reason for why they cannot pursue the goal. That is someone who's lacking resilience. If when they stumble, they look back and they say, I'm a failure, that is someone who's lacking that resilience. So where it's easy for a manager to quickly identify if their member of their team has resilience or lacks resilience.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. Michael, welcome back. I will come back to you in a minute so we can finish off your answer to the question. But I want to give you a follow-up question, Susan. You've described what resilience looks like. And I think that, you've given us a real amazing insight. And perhaps for many of us, food for thought as to whether or not that's the way you've been showing up. So has your manager been seeing you as someone who's resilient or not because of the way that you've been showing up? Susan, can a leader help a member of their team to build this skill? Or can they even be helped? So if you identify that someone in your team doesn't have this skill, so they're not showing up positively in all those kind of areas you spoke about, what can a leader do?
Oh, by all means. Oh gosh, I like the way you ask it, but I tend to be a very positive person, and there's no lost cause. So definitely, you can help your members of your team develop resilience, because as I've mentioned, resilience is about how you perceive things and how you organize yourself towards whatever goals. So a manager could definitely help a member of their team by assisting them with setting their goals. So goal setting. So helping them have very clear goals is one of the ways to help them stay on their path. Number two is helping them identify how they identify what they can influence. What are they in control of? What can they manipulate, maneuver, contribute to a situation? Number three, which I would love to hear more from Michael about, is how do they perceive? How do they see a situation? So remember, I was talking about positivity. So when you come across a challenge, how do you see it, and how can you use it, turn it around to keep you going on your path? And that's about your thought awareness. How do you respond to what's happening, but how do you also think through what needs to happen? And critical also is the manager providing feedback. So you have these goals that are set out. You've equipped somebody with helping them think through how they're going along their journey, but you need to give them feedback. So whether it's positive or negative outcome of the process, they need that feedback. So if it's positive, you need to provide that feedback, because resilience comes hand in hand with confidence. So you need to celebrate the wins. When you celebrate the wins, then you're building that confidence, and that confidence builds towards that resilience. If it's negative feedback, you're able to provide that opportunity to learn the lesson, to pick up the lessons from whatever it is. So constant feedback is also critical in that process. And again, provide opportunities for agility. I can't emphasize the need for agility and versatility in resilience enough.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Susan. I love your response to that. And I can see a question. Please keep your questions coming. I'm going to give Michael a moment to just go over what he had shared with us earlier. And then after that, we're going to come and tackle some of the questions that you have. And I see a question, actually, the last question that was posted by Jimmy Jane Joroge, who actually was asking, and I think you've answered that, how do you spur on your team? But we'll come back to the questions that are being shared. Please keep sharing your questions. We want to be able to answer them as a team. Michael, we lost you as you were sharing how a leader can build resilience. So can you take us back to that
Sorry
point?
about
How
that.
can a leader, no worries, how can a leader, develop resilience?
And I'll be settled in about 10 minutes. I'm sorry about that, but I had to
No
be on.
worries, no worries. That's okay. We're happy to have you here.
So I'd started, thank you, Mucha. I'd started first by asking questions, and I'd elaborated about the asking questions. The second is listening. And I was giving the analogy of listening to the air traffic controller. If you're on that plane and moving, the air traffic controller has a vision and a sight that you do not have. Now, who's your air traffic controller? I mean, for a leader, it could be from a spiritual perspective, God. It could be from the mentor perspective. It could be, I don't know who else you'd have as air traffic control. You might also have fellow airplanes in the air. And those are fellow leaders who are flying along with you. They might have an insight, and you need to be relating and networking to hear and know what is going on. But there's the very important team that you have with you, the crew and the team that you're carrying. They have an insight, and it is critical to hear and see and allow them to also take part and play a part in this whole journey. I found in this season that the manner in which leaders have been treating their team members in this season has been critical. Now, those who are going to traverse this season successfully are those who have maintained and held on to values. And that's another thing that you have to be clear about in terms of what the values are, what values you're communicating to your team. I'd say the third thing would be sure to act. Whether you're up in the sunshine, you need to come out and act. Whether you're in the clouds, you need to come out and act. You need to be seen to be participating in these difficult moments by your team members at your level, but that you're participating. And I dare say that, when the plane is down, then it is a time when it would be good to see you in the trenches with everyone else, as opposed to still barking the orders. There's a time when we all have to huddle and do what needs to be done. That helps the individual person's resilience, and then helps also with the resilience of the entire organization that you're leading. Mucha, please just tell me the other question you asked so that I can go to it.
So I think it was just thinking through how these coaches, how leaders can develop resilience. And what I'd ask you is, we've been talking about, and Susan was sharing how resilience looks like, or what it looks like in an employee. And I just wondered, what does it look like in a leader? How can we tell that we are being led by an individual who is resilient? And I'm sure there is some overlap, and perhaps you missed part of what Susan shared. But yeah, how does it show up in leaders?
So a leader who's showing resilience, and again, I stick with this analogy, remains calm. They're not buffeted, but they remain focused on the vision. a leader who is resilient still is able to perceive the needs of the team and respond to them. A leader who's resilient is able to continue doing those things that, what do I call them? You know, the self-care, taking care of themselves so that they're all right, so that they can be all right for the people they're leading. And all that, in summary, is the leader is still able to be an example in terms of everything that Susan highlighted, an example to the entire team. Mucha, I was smiling while Susan was talking about, you know, the goals and the like in the work and in what the leader should be able to help the team members, because it then links to something that I do, but something that I think leaders need more of. And it has to do with coaching. The process of coaching helps someone process that information and come to the point of knowing what their goals are, being able to receive help in processing how they're going to go through challenges. And I dare say that a leader might find it very, very critical to be able to coach their team if they're working to be resilient and to help the team members be resilient. Because in essence, what I said is asking questions is you can ask yourself questions, but then it is critical to have a sounding board as a leader also, to be able to have someone who's challenging and asking the right questions that help you.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for that, Michael. I
Process
think that's
information and go through the season. I should say that I've done plenty more coaching, whether paid for or not.
Carry on, Michael. We lost you for a second, but you're back.
Oh, I'm back. Okay, great.
Yes,
Great.
you're back.
Yes. Yes, that I've helped many leaders in terms of just having conversations that are helping them reflect on the situation and what which direction they can go and things that they need to consider and process in their minds. So yes, I'd say that is a critical thing. Coaching, a leader to be a coach and a leader to be coached. And why is the leader suggested to be a coach? Is so that they can coach their team members. Yeah. And maybe Susan
Fantastic.
could say yes or no to that. Yeah.
Fantastic. I think Susan is nodding her head. I really love the air traffic controller analogy that you shared with us, Michael. I think it's a really powerful analogy of, thinking through, who is directing you, who is helping you navigate some of the stormy weather you may come upon, who are the leaders beside you that you are leveraging, whose strength and ability you're utilizing, and who is your crew, right? Because a pilot can't possibly fly that plane on her own. Susan, I see a bit of a smile. Planes make sense to you. Planes make perfect sense to you as an analogy. I really love that analogy. I'd like us to come to a Q&A, and we already have quite a few questions that are on the chat. So we're going to answer the questions. For those of you who are tuned in, please share your questions. If you would like to ask a specific person your question, then just indicate that your question is going to a specific person. Otherwise, we'll just open it up to the panel, the question that you have. So let's go to some of the questions that we have. And I know the question started early. So thank you very much. And thanks to all the comments that are here. It's really good to have you here. Esther says, great advice to the millennials. Tessie, thank you very much for your advice to the millennials. I think it has really been appreciated. Esther is asking, for the young people who feel invalidated by age, how do they stay above the clouds? So Michael, you gave an analogy of staying above the clouds. How do you stay above the clouds when you feel invalidated by the fact that you are young and often people look down on your youth? The Bible tells us that we should not allow people to despise our youth, but unfortunately, that is the scenario. And Michael, after you share, Tessie, I'd like to get your perspective on that same question. Michael?
I like that you, sorry, I'm here. I like that
Yeah.
you mentioned the Bible. And
Mhm.
I'd say, how do you stay above the clouds? Now, that question, its entire focus has to do with what everyone else is saying and the opinion that has been given from the external point of view. Now, what I'd stress, and it's in line with what we've been saying earlier, is that you have to also have an internal compass, an internal truth of who you are, and where you're headed to, so that you can then forge forward irrespective of the realities around you, which include these debilitating opinions from other people. So I'd say, now you need to check your attitude and you need to check your goals and your clarity about who you are. And then from that perspective, even if there is an avalanche of negativity or what have you, you can still pierce right through. You can actually keep your head above the clouds of many people's opinions and keep your vision and sight on where you're going. That's what I'd say at this point.
I love that. I love that point, Michael. And really, this is at the heart of emotional intelligence. Sometimes when I talk about emotional intelligence and how it is such an integral skill for now, a lot of people may not really understand what emotional intelligence is. Emotional intelligence is at its core about being true to your why. And I like that point you've just made, Michael, about having your your why very clear and having that as your guidance rather than worrying about the kind of noise that is coming from all those around you. And there is much that has been said about millennials and how we are struggling to work with them, and but there is so much positive that comes from millennials. So I like that point, Michael, that just be very clear about your why, being very clear about what is your pointer, and reminding yourself that at the end of the day, God made you and placed you in that moment that you are in. You are millennial because that is where He put you, and He wants to use you in that space. Tessie, what are your thoughts on that question?
Mucha, I think my easy answer would be, in my free time, I watch America's Got Talent. And this show showcases individuals across board, as young as 3, as old as 70. And these are people who present their craft. What's interesting is, whether young or old, age usually is not something they look at to sort of verify whether you can move on to the next stage or win. And most of my favorite shows or crafts are for the young kids, which actually make me cry sometimes because I look at them and remember when I was 3 or 5 or 10, I didn't have that much courage to go out and present myself in a way that shows confidence in what I do or my talents and gifts, and being able to show the world or share it with the world. Now, I wish we would behave like young kids, who are not scared, who feel confident in what they know and in their craft. Because as I even connect with what Michael has said, once you have clarity of your why, then you can make sure you're working on it. So you sort of what's the word? You work on it, you craft it very well, you make sure you're getting good at it, you make sure you're very unique, and you get to a point where nobody will miss Mucha. They'll be like, you want someone who does this and is, excellent at their job, it's Mucha. They won't think twice about it. So it's like Michael said, knowing your why and working at it, not stopping at any point, because you are connected to that why, and you're very clear about why you're doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Tessie. Susan, I don't know if you have any comment that you'd like to add on that particular question.
Yes, I'd like to just share a quick one, which is very much what Tessie and Michael have touched on, and it's when I spoke of commitment, I spoke of commitment to who you are, commitment to goals, and commitment to why you get up every morning. In our day, we used to call it raison d'être, and in Tessie's day, they're calling it ikigai. And it's, why do you get up? Why do you get going every morning? And once you can commit to that as millennials, then you already have the platform to dare to be audacious. We already are ready to imagine anything coming out of a millennial. We're ready for anything. And that's the platform that you should take and be extreme and own that you can be extreme, and own that you're in that space so that you can stretch and find new areas that we've never, uncharted ground. Millennials are here to show us that there's so much uncharted ground. And I think that should be the confidence that you should go with. So like Tessie said, there's also brand yourself. So understand yourself, accept yourself, and get on with it.
Yeah. I love that. Get on with it. One of the things I always think, and I want to kind of turn things over a little, is if you consider that there are so many organizations that are supposedly struggling with the millennial contingent, there are so many organizations who feel like they are not committed, they are not showing up, they are not expressing themselves. I always think that if in that kind of environment you shine, how much brighter your light appears in comparison to those around you. And I think for me, the advice I would give to a millennial is just shine. Just focus on being, as Tessie said, the best that you can be. And sometimes that's just taking it one day at a time. You know, we're going through a period right now that has been really tough for very many individuals. And one of the things I was reflecting on this week is sometimes the challenge is we're looking too far ahead and we're focusing too far on what tomorrow will bring. What about focusing on today? What about making a decision that I'm going to show up and be my best self in this moment? I'm going to take the necessary step right now. And what you find is you will move forward. You will push through what it is that you are experiencing. There's another question here from Christine. Susan, I can remain with you. Where do you draw the line when to be resilient and to give up to preserve your sanity? When does resilience do more harm than good? So I guess, you know, this is where we're looking at resilience as the ability to kind of bounce back up or navigate the obstacles we're facing. So when does resilience do more harm than good? When is it okay to say, nah, that's it?
Okay. Thanks, Christine, for that question. First, one of the things that Michael mentioned is the importance for wellness. So there's no way that you will be resilient if you are not taking care of yourself. And when you say when does resilient become less productive or more harmful than continuing than saying it's time to quit. So for me, I would emphasize the importance of wellness. You need to be sure that this goal that you've set for yourself is also healthy for you. And whatever journey or pursuit of this goal, it's healthy for you. So that's the first point. The second thing that we have talked about today is the agility and versatility. The agility is important because you need to be able to continuously be assessing. If you're continuously assessing your progress on this goal and you're continuously assessing the need for this goal, then at some point you might need to ask yourself, do we need to change this goal? Do we need to change this journey? And at the point that you are seeing that I need to change this for one reason or another, it's not healthy for the team, it's not healthy for me, it's not going to have the impact that had been intended. So, Christine, you need to keep reevaluating yourself. You need to keep reevaluating your journey. You need to keep reevaluating the goal. And once you do that, then you have the opportunity to realize when the goal is no longer healthy and when the goal is no longer purpose-driven. It's no longer fulfilling to those involved.
It's interesting, as you've put that, it's just struck me that a lot of the conversations we have tend to end up circling on the same thing, because what I understand, and you can correct me if I'm wrong from what you're saying, Susan, is that, as I review and refine my goal, I also need to link it to my why, like go back to my why, go back to my purpose. And if this goal is no longer serving my purpose, I should be okay to say, you know what, nah.
Precisely.
This is no longer resilience. This is now foolishness, continuing to push on after this particular goal that no longer serves me. Michael, I want to bring you in on this, especially because you're a coach, you are a psychologist. When do we draw the line? How do we I'm looking for the questions so I can ask it exactly how it came. So where do you draw the line between when to be resilient and when to give up so that you can preserve your sanity?
That is a profound question, because a lot of it has to do with, it's a lot of an internal process. And it has also to do with what we've been talking about, how clear you are about where you're going, and also how clear you are about who you are. I would add how clear you are about whose you are.
Sorry, Michael. I think I need to hear you say that again. That was just so profound. I need you to say that one more time, just in case someone missed that. Wow.
I don't remember what I said.
Something about whose you are. Whose you are,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's where you are, who you are, and whose you are. Because we can have a focus on what we want to achieve, and that's just great. We can know, personality tests, psychometric tests, who we are, but it's also critical to know whose you are, because we are operating not as ultimate deciders of all that happens. And the same way we're subject to leadership and authority in an organization, and that leader and the authority is going to decide it's over, it's done. Everyone go home. The same way every leader is subject to authority. Now, I could put it many ways, but subject ultimately to God. Now, knowing how you fit in that scheme of things then gives you a greater clarity and peace in knowing, no, this one, we're just going to dig in and continue. Or here at this point, because of that connection and knowing whose you are, it is time. And it's okay. It's okay to have to change course, because then you have that ultimate assurance that has been given. It's okay to have to change course as an employee, because the leader has then said, this is how we're going, or this is the course we're taking. Now, knowing the exact time, I don't think can be prescribed, because sometimes it's knowing, I'm going to stick with this. We're going to fall 1,000 times like the light bulb, but we will have a light bulb. And it's because you stick and stick and stick in the light of a lot of ridicule, failure, and the like, that something comes out. I think that's a real thing. And I think the threat in our generation is not having the patience to do the 1,000 times. We need it more instant. So we're more likely to stop too soon rather than go on too long.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's so profound. And it speaks to a point that Tessie made earlier when she was sharing how millennials can be resilient. And Tessie, you talked about the idea that, people must have that stickability, right? So it's and maybe it's one of those things that you may not, as you've said, Michael, get right all the time. That balance between resilience and stickability, and when it's okay to say, you know what, no, this is not the right course. So you may not get it right. Sometimes you will stick for a little longer than you needed to. But I'd like to imagine I'd rather have stuck a little longer than I needed to than give up just before the breakthrough was coming. Tessie, what are your thoughts on that?
To be honest, I totally agree with what Michael said. And I'd want to add why I think it's important to be able to stop and say, this is not working. We probably shelf it or put it aside and try on something new. It's important because it's at that point where we start really beating ourselves up. Yeah. Then this particular goal that's not working becomes the one thing that affects every other part of your life. So now you start saying, I am not a resilient person. I am not good at this, things that you've probably been working on for a long time. So yes, it is okay to stop because you don't want to also injure your productivity in other things because you have worked so hard to come this far. So it's okay to say, by the way, it's okay. This is as far as I can go, and I need to move on to something else, just for your peace of mind. So yeah.
Fantastic. I love that. So, and maybe the other perspective we can also add is that sometimes, going back again to Christine's question, sometimes it's not so much about saying this is not something I'm going to work towards, but maybe it's looking at this is not how I will do it, right? So maybe it's not so much the goal itself that you then give up on, it's how you are getting to the goal. And so this resilience then requires an ability to really be able to reflect. And this is why it's such an integral part of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is about being self-aware. And so the more self-aware we are, the more we're able to really reflect on our journey towards our goal. The more honestly we reflect, we're able to determine whether the issue is the goal itself or the issue is the approach to the goal, right? Wow, this is, thank you so much. And I see your comments. I'm seeing lots of great comments coming through that you really need to focus. Christine says to show up and be your best today. I shared a video yesterday and I was really reflecting and I'm doing this video challenge where I share an EQ tip every week. And actually the video I was going to post this week is not the one I ended up posting. I had a different video. But as I was preparing for this session, that thought struck me and I decided to just do an alternative video. I'll do the other one next week. And it's this idea that resilience is just taking one more step. And it's knowing that I can, right? I can just take one more step. Because the reality is that we have been affected in different ways by this pandemic. For some of us, we are lying flat on our backs. That's where we are right now. And maybe for you, resilience is just sitting up. Maybe it's not even taking a step, it's just sitting up so that you can see the way forward. And so resilience then is maybe just taking that next step. Please keep bringing your questions. If you have any other questions, I see lots of comments. I'm not seeing any questions. I see a lot of comments. Thank you so much for all the comments that you're sharing. I can see that you are enjoying this discussion that we're having. If you have any other question, remember, just share it. If you have it for a specific individual, you can share it specifically with them. Or if you just have a question in general, you are more than welcome to put it together, to share it with everyone. Let me come back to each of you. I'm looking at the time. We have 25 minutes left, and I want to make sure that we don't overrun. Before I come to your parting shot, let me bring us to this conversation about the intersection between emotional intelligence and resilience. I want us to have a conversation, like I said, about the intersection between emotional intelligence and resilience. How for you, and I know it's great when you're able to share your own experience, how do you see this intersection? Are they one and the same thing? Are they different? How do they relate with each other? What are your thoughts about this intersection of emotional intelligence and resilience? Is resilience a type of EQ? What are your thoughts? And I ask this because in the work that I do, a lot of times when I talk about emotional intelligence, people feel like, okay, is this thing that I know I should have, but what is it really? So Tessie, let me start with you. What do you see as, the relationship between the two?
I'd say EQ is the skill that helps you to stay resilient in your journey. Yeah. I'd say I'd practice resilience pretty well in my course as a communications person in my career. But when I went through this EQ series at work, I began looking at myself differently. What strengths do I have? What weaknesses do I have? Looking at my interpersonal relationship skills. How do I relate with people? How does that affect me as a person? How does that affect, my environment? And it sort of boosted my resilience, right? So I'd say it's that skill that you should have. Like Susan said, it's a must-have that will help you achieve so much, and not just resilience in your journey, but so much as you tread this journey called life. Yeah, basically.
Fantastic, thank you. And maybe Tessie, as a follow-up before I move to the others, how important is this? Now, if we look specifically at someone's career journey. So the idea is, the Lunch and Learn series is supposed to be for employees to help them in their journey in their careers to develop a successful career. So how important is this emotional intelligence skill that you've talked about that will help you to be resilient?
There's something that we learned that I'd want to probably share. The three aspects, of EQ, and one is choosing yourself. First, it's know yourself. So know yourself. Who are you? What are you good at? What do you enjoy? What do you know? What don't you like? How do you like to work, especially in a workplace kind of environment? Then the second one is choose yourself. And that comes to those instances where you're able to say, stop, let me reflect, let me think. I have options. This is not the end of the world. I can reset because I need to stay sober and sane. And the last one is give yourself. So being able to be first very, very, I like to say present in your journey in a way that allows you to, catch everything that's happening in your environment and being able to allow yourself to give value to people around you and to yourself as well. So it's important for everyone in the work environment to have EQ skills, to first grow as a person, because we want to really have this amazing career growth. And it's one thing that can help us do that. And two, to be able to be of value to the organization. And most organizations want people who add value. So for those two reasons, that's why you need EQ.
Wow, I love that. And I'm feeling a proud moment, Tessie. What Tessie didn't say is that the EQ journey that they've been on as an organization at Centonomy is one that we facilitated as an organization. So I'm feeling a very proud moment as I see that the student has become the teacher. As you explore some of the things we discussed in our EQ journey at Centonomy. Susan, EQ resilience, what are your thoughts?
I think resilience is one of the many products of EQ. And if we just recap on the ingredients for resilience, it's one very, very similar to what Tessie has put together, has put across, is having a commitment to who you are. So you can't commit to who you are if you're not aware of who you are. Having clarity on what you can influence. So again, if you're not aware of your strengths and your abilities, then you're not able to identify what to focus on based on what you can influence and what you can have an impact on. Perspective. So if you don't have clarity on where it is you're going, what it is you want to achieve, and how you want to show up, what you want to add to society, then it's very hard to be resilient, because then you don't have a compass, you don't have your focus, you don't have your direction. So resilience is one of the products of emotional intelligence, and emotional intelligence is having that self-awareness, and taking it a step further. It's not just self-awareness, but self-acceptance. So understanding yourself and accepting yourself. And from that, then one of the fruits of that is resilience, where you're able to keep going because you're at peace with who you are, where you are, and if Michael allow me, whose you are.
I love that. I think that's gonna be the quote of today's series, right? Who you are, where you are, and whose you are. I think that's just the most profound statement. Yes, Michael, emotional intelligence and resilience. Your thoughts?
If I'm right, because I haven't done the course yet, but if I gather emotional intelligence is awareness of self, as both Susan and Tessie have said, and then it's awareness of others or where they are, and then an awareness of how you're interacting with these people and yourself. Then I'd say that indeed EQ helps one become more resilient. How? Because then you're aware, and now I go to psychological terms, you're aware of your triggers. You know that this is happening, so now you know when this happens, normally this is what I do, and you can choose to counter that likely way you're going to behave. In very simple terms, things are going wrong, you know that you always shout. So because you're aware of yourself, things go wrong, you don't shout. You don't get into a panic, you don't get depressed because things are not working out, and you can tell yourself, so now slow down. And the things that I mentioned earlier, what may I do? You ask yourself questions, you then listen to those comments and what people are saying around you, and then you make the concrete decision to act, to take an action. So I agree that resilience is an outcome, a good one of the outcomes of EQ.
Yeah.
If I can leave it that brief, I don't necessarily repeat what's being said.
I love it. For those of you who are tuned in online, please make sure that you fill out our questionnaire. We'd like to hear from you. We'd like to hear how you've enjoyed the session. And as I mentioned, this series will be a monthly series, and we want to equip you with the skills you need to be successful in your career. So let us know what other EQ-related topics you would like us to discuss. You know, emotional intelligence is such a powerful skill we're learning today that it enables us to be more resilient. What else can emotional intelligence empower us to do? So please fill out the questionnaire. I've put the link in the chat. Fill out the questionnaire and tell us what else you'd like to learn. Let us come to you guys, and you can give us your parting shot. Michael, I'll start with you as you were just speaking. What is your parting shot as we begin to wrap up this conversation about how you can use emotional intelligence to build resilience?
I'm going to add something. Coach yourself so that you may be aware of yourself, other people, and how you respond to other people. And if this is my parting shot, may I also give an apology? I am being resilient in my newfound way of being and doing work on the move. And Mucha, you're my teacher in this one. Thank you so much for having me on the Lunch and Learn.
We are so happy. The idea of the Lunch and Learn is it meets you wherever you are, so that you do it as part of your day. So you can tune in as you are moving from one client meeting to the other. You can tune in as you're sitting in the break room having your lunch. You can tune in as you are at home, from home, wherever you are. And the Lunch and Learn series will continue post-COVID, whatever happens next, this is a monthly conversation we are planning to have. We encourage you to share the info about the Lunch and Learn with those you work with. And we're looking forward to a day where organizations will tell us that on a specific Wednesday afternoon, once a month, everyone in the organization is tuned in to the Lunch and Learn, because these are skills that are essential for you in your career journey, and they will help you to be more effective and productive. Susan, what is your parting shot?
Mucha, as I start, I think you can list my organization as the first one that will be tuning in on a regular basis. So,
awesome.
Yeah, we will definitely be investing in EQ for the Jambojetters. Michael, I think, I don't know whether, in what capacity you need to come and support Jambojet, because you speak aviation A to Z. Tessie, it's been a pleasure, and you represent millennials so well, and you have a lot of wisdom beyond your years, and it's been truly a pleasure. My parting shot before I give my my gratitude to Mucha is, we are in a society that's become so busy and so noisy. There's so much going on, and the more we have technological advances, the noisier it gets, the busier we get. You have, when we were starting off, Mucha had to stop and shut down a number of windows that she had open because she was working on so many different projects at once. And my advice to everyone is pause. Pause. Take a moment to pause. Spend some time with yourself. Understand who you are, what you want to achieve, how you want to show up, what gets you going, and what keeps you going. And reflect. If you take the time to do these things, then your wellness is in balance, your resilience is in check, and your purpose, you will be in a position to identify it and pursue it. Just one last quick sentence is, we have the opportunity to have abundance of life. That abundance is not talking about wealth, property, the people you know. It's about, and I think Tessie mentioned it, being in that moment. Be fully in that moment, and you will enjoy that abundance of life. Thank you so much, Mucha. This has been totally enlightening and enjoyable, and I'm looking forward to what you're going to do with this series.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Susan. I'm really excited to have the three of you as our first ever guests in the Lunch and Learn series. Really excited that you are on board. Tessie, and maybe before Tessie shares her parting shot, she doesn't know this, but allow me to gossip about her a little. So as Tessie mentioned, Centonomy is one of our clients, and we have been doing a series of on emotional intelligence. And I really want to commend the leadership team at Centonomy, led by their CEO, Waithaka, and also and supported by the rest of the team, because they made a commitment that EQ is not going to be a 30-minute seminar. It's going to be a journey. So we've actually been working together since last year. The journey has taken, well, COVID meant it ended up taking more than the 6 months we'd initially planned. But one of the reasons why Tessie is on this webinar today is because she didn't just sit in class and absorb. She began to utilize what she was learning. And I loved seeing that. And I thought that she would be a great person to have, because one of the commitments we've made is every Lunch and Learn, we must have a millennial who will give us a millennial perspective. And she was the first person who came to mind to join us for this first Lunch and Learn. And Tessie, it's because of the fact that you have sat in class, you have absorbed, and you have utilized. Yeah, so this really is maybe advice to those millennials who are tuned in, that what Tessie is saying is not just words, she's actually doing what she is saying. Tessie, your parting shot.
Wow, Mucha. I was about to turn video off and, get some tissue. Thank you so much. I cannot begin to explain how much you have impacted our organization. Like Susan had said, that this would be something that they will do for Jambojetters. We are doing it already, Mucha. I can see Ruby in the room. I can see Esther in the room.
Yes,
Guys are
I
here
see.
chilling out,
Yeah.
having their lunch, and hanging out to learn. So I'd say quite much that you have really impacted our lives, and EQ is a must-have. That I will not forget, Susan. Thank you so much. Meeting you is an honor. Michael, again, meeting you is always an honor. My last thing would be for those things that you'd want to start, the ideas that you've had in your mind that you wanted to start for a long time, or there's something you just want to get good at and it's taking time. One is write it down, put down those goals, say, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to become. And the magic one is start. So there's so much magic in starting the process. So don't just write it down, don't just read it, don't just reflect upon it, but start doing it. You learn a lot from the journey. I have tried it, I have tested it, and I love that aspect of resilience. You learn across board, and it's a journey. So take it easy on yourself. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. A very big thank you to you, Tessie. Tessie Omulo from Centonomy. Thank you so much to you, Susan. Susan Chege is the head of people and culture at Jambojet. And thank you so much to you, Michael. Michael is an executive coach at Serenity Group. I am so grateful that you were able to spend this time with us online and to really share of yourselves and your journeys on how we can leverage emotional intelligence to build our resilience. And I think that there is so much that you have shared. I couldn't really share all of it, but thank you so much for everything that you have shared. I think for me, the key takeaway from you, Tessie, is the idea that at the end of the day, resilience is about being committed. And I love the example you gave us where you were committed to this goal that you have set yourself, and all the best for the remaining days that you have to run. So thank you so much for that. Love what you said. Susan, thank you so much for being here and for sharing. I think for me, the biggest takeaway from everything you've said is really about how, as leaders, we can coach the people we work with to build resilience. I think that's a really important insight for leaders, that instead of kind of throwing in the towel and complaining that this individual is not showing up how you would like, you are able to actually coach them. And Michael, obviously, Michael is off the screen now, but I think the key takeaway we all have from Michael is knowing who you are, where you are, and whose you are. So thank you so much to my fantastic panelists. I have really enjoyed having you online today. As we wrap up our session, as we wrap up our conversation, allow me to say thank you so much for sharing your lunch with us. The idea of the Lunch and Learn series is that you bring your lunch and we will provide the learning. I have shared in the chat. Please diarize our next event. We will be talking about optimism next month. All right. So our Lunch and Learn next month will be optimism. How or what optimism is. Is it a trait? Is it a skill? Can you develop it? How important is it for your career journey? As I sign off, allow me to share also an invitation for you to join our closed group on Facebook. We have a Facebook group. Please join it. We've also shared the link. Goodness, I think the challenge is you guys have been having your lunch and I haven't, and now I'm tripping all over myself because I think I haven't eaten. But anyway, let's try that again. Rewind. As I was saying, I have shared the link to join our closed Facebook group. Please join us. we have a weekly EQ challenge. So every week we set an EQ challenge and we support each other in achieving that EQ challenge. As an organization, PTS Africa is committed to helping you in your EQ journey. We want you to thrive. We want you to succeed. We want you to chart your course as far as your career is concerned. And we know that the learnable skill of emotional intelligence is essential to your leadership, to your success in your career. And so we want to provide the support we can, which is why we have the EQ Lunch and Learn series. So please diarize, make sure that you join us here. Next month, we'll be talking about optimism. Also join our Facebook group. Like I said, we have a weekly EQ challenge, and we would love to have you participate as you grow that EQ muscle. Last but not least, let me invite you to have a look at the training that we are offering as an organization. We provide three key offerings. We have EQ assessment. So if you're one of those people who's thinking, I'd like to know what my EQ is, please visit our website. We have a number of EQ assessments that you can take. So feel free to visit our website and reach out to us. We also provide EQ coaching. So now that you know where you are as far as your EQ is concerned, how can you develop that skill? How can you exercise that muscle? If you'd like us to walk with you on your EQ journey, again, visit our website and fill in a form, and we'll share information about the EQ coaching. And then last but not least, we have our EQ training. And I'd like to share a session that we have coming up in September. We know that emotional intelligence drives effectiveness. It helps people build positive relationships. It increases quality of life and well-being. And these learnable, measurable skills are transformational. We know they will transform your journey as an employee. How do you get started? Well, we would like to help you with that. Join me for the September edition of the Unlock Your Potential with EQ webinar series. It is an online program running from the 22nd to the 24th of September. Would be grateful, would be very happy to have you online, to have you participate with us. Again, visit our website for more information about that particular program. We have a special offer. Woo-hoo! We have a flash sale for everyone who's participated in today's session. So if you register this month, you will pay 5,130 shillings, and that is inclusive of VAT. And that is a 3-day program, the 22nd to the 24th of September in the mornings, and we will be digging deeper to help you understand your why. One of the things that every panelist said in their own way was how essential it is to know your why. And I think that's also very much ties in with the comment Michael made about knowing whose you are. What is your why? Join us on that program and we'll be able to help you to explore that. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm really, really excited that we're able to have our first edition of the Lunch and Learn series. Diarize the 16th of September, 12:30 to 2 p.m. and invite a friend to have lunch with you as you tune in and listen to the conversation about optimism. Remember, join our Facebook group, follow us on social media so that you can continue to learn the different EQ tips that we will be sharing. Thank you so much, and thanks again to my panel. And allow me to say thank you to the PTS team who have been working behind the scenes, making sure that this event, this session is a success. And on that note, allow me to say it's a wrap. Thank you very much, guys. See you.